All right, let's go ahead and go over this GVC FOG homework, the FOG homework. This is composite functions, where you do a function of a function. So I want to just start at number 1. Now this is just one version, and the different versions will change based on which paper you picked up. So the numbers might be different, but it will do the same thing. So first off, I want to remind you that to do this, you just got to remember that this right here is the inside part. So we're plugging the g of 4 into the f function. That's what's going into there. Another way that we've learned to write that is f of g of negative 4. Okay, so that shows you that the g function is what's plugging in. Okay, so with that in mind, we take this negative 4 and plug it in right there for the g, or the x in the g function. Okay, we're working in the g function right here. So we have parentheses, negative 4, parentheses, plus 5. Well, negative 4 plus 5 is 1. And so that's what g of negative 4 is. Well, g of negative 4 is what goes into f. So we have 2 parentheses plus 4. And we found out g of negative 4 is 1. So that's what I'm going to put there. 2 times 1 is 2. Plus 4 is 6. And that's the answer. Okay. Let's go ahead and go over the next one. Another example. In this one, we're plugging in that into the g function. So I'm just going to rewrite the g function, 3x plus 5. All I'm doing is just changing that and putting parentheses where the x was, right here. Okay, what goes inside the parentheses? Well, the parentheses are right there. Okay, g of that. So we're looking for h of negative 4. So that negative 4 goes right here. Negative 4 plus 1 is negative 3. That's what goes in the parentheses. 3 times negative 3 is negative 9. Negative 9 plus 5 is negative 4. And that is the answer for that one. Okay, let's move on to number 3. Here, again, we just put our box around this and say, all right, here's the parentheses. We have g of h of 3. So we're replacing the n inside the g function, so we're going to rewrite that. And we're going to have 3 parentheses plus 2. What goes inside here? Well, h of negative 3 goes inside there. H of negative 3. H of negative 3 means we're plugging in to the h function. And inside the h function, we're putting, we have h of parentheses. Now this one, I'm just going to rewrite the h function. Negative 3 parentheses squared minus 5 parentheses. We can see here we have the h function written. So there's the h function, and it's rewritten right here with all the n's changed to parentheses. What goes inside each parenthesis? It is negative 3. So we're going to put negative 3 there and negative 3 here. And we're going to go ahead and solve that using a calculator. So we have our calculator here. Now let's solve it. We have negative 3 parentheses, negative 3 parentheses squared minus 5 parentheses, negative 3 parentheses. Enter. And we see the answer is negative 12. Now what if you don't have a calculator? What if, that's not available to you? Well, that's fine. We can do it by hand. we can say, okay, what's negative 3 squared is 9. So that's negative 3 times negative 3 is 9. 9 times negative 3 is negative 27. So now we have negative 27 minus 5 times negative 3. What is negative 5 times negative 3 is 15. So negative 27 positive 15. And negative 27 plus 15 is negative 12. So you can do it by hand too. So anyway, we found what h of negative 3 is. H of negative 3 is negative 12. So if we're plugging that into G, we'll just plug in the negative 12. 3 times negative 12 is negative 36, plus 2 is negative 34. And that's the answer. Don't overdo it, don't overthink it, just plug in. That's all you have to do is just plug it in. Okay, so now we have g of negative 2. So inside the function, the f function, that's my parentheses. So I have the f function right here, and I'm going to rewrite it with parentheses. I have parentheses, negative 3. What goes inside the parentheses? G of negative 2. So that means I'm going to plug negative 2 in right there for x, because that's, g of, and the x tells me what I'm replacing with, so g of negative 2. So negative 2 squared is 4. 4 minus 3 is 1. So g of negative 2 is 1. Okay, well, if I know that, g of negative 2 is what's going into the parentheses, and those are the exact same things, so I can just put it right up there into the parentheses. So negative 1. Negative 1 minus 3 is negative 4. And that's the answer. Number 5 on my sheet looks like this. Again, we look. Here's my g function. Inside the f function, I'm going to rewrite it. I have 2 parentheses. Well, what goes inside the parentheses? This g of negative 8 is what goes inside parentheses. Well, what's g of negative 8? We just plug in a negative 8 for n. Negative 8 minus 4 is, and don't forget the parentheses, but in this case you don't need it. Negative 8 minus 4 is negative 12. So that is what goes in there. So now we have 2 times negative 12, which is negative 24. And that's the answer. Number 6. Here we have our h of t. So we're just, that's what's going inside the g right there. So the g function, I'm going to rewrite it. I have negative parentheses squared minus parentheses. And what goes inside the parentheses? H of t. Well, I know what h of t is. It's that right there, that whole piece. So that's h of t. And so I plug that in. 2t plus 3. 2t plus 3. Okay. Now for my class, that's good enough. I'll accept that right there so I can see that you knew where to plug it in. Okay, next one. We're going to rewrite the f function. That's what comes first, so I'm going to rewrite it and say parentheses squared minus 1. What goes inside the parentheses? It's this second part right here. So we'll just assume these are the parentheses. And what goes inside these parentheses? It's g of n. G of n. So this is g of n. So I'm going to put that right there. And again, if you want to simplify it down, you can square that, but for me, that's a good enough answer. It shows me you knew what to plug in where, and that's all I'm after. Okay, now one like this can look really tricky. Again, we have our parentheses right here. And so in our g function, we're going to rewrite it. We have parentheses squared plus 1. What goes inside the parentheses? Well, inside the parentheses is g of n. What is g of n? G of n is this. So we're going to plug that in right there for the parentheses. We have n squared plus 1. And that's the answer. Okay, again, you don't need to simplify for me. That's just all I need to know is that you know where to plug it in. Okay, just automatically throw the parentheses in right here. And we say in our f function, so we're going to rewrite that f function, negative 3 parentheses plus 3. And you see all I'm doing is just replacing the x with parentheses. That's all I'm doing. What goes inside those parentheses? This part right here, g of x. Well, what is g of x? According to our problem, g of x is this. So that's what goes right here. I have x squared minus 3. And that is our answer. And that's all we have to do for that one. Number 10, here's one like this. Just put parentheses right here. Now we're going to rewrite the problem. We have our g function, so we're going to rewrite it with the parentheses. 2 times x minus 3. What goes inside the parentheses? Well, it's g of x right there. What is g of x? G of x is this whole piece right there. So that is what goes in right there. And for me, that's enough. Now, if you want to simplify it down, I'll simplify this one for you. You can do 2 times 2x, that's 4x, and 2 times negative 3 is minus 6, and then minus 3, and then you have 4x minus 9. I mean, those two are perfectly fine. I'll accept either one of them. But if you want to simplify it, you can. You don't have to, and you'll still get full credit. So hopefully that helps. I know it's a tough homework, and I know mine are different problems than what you have on yours. But just remember, all you have to do is just put parentheses around this piece, and then that right there is what gets plugged in to the f. And I know that because the f is right there. So g of negative 4, so you plug in the negative 4 here and solve and so on. So don't overdo it. Don't over concern yourself with it. Try to relax and do the best you can. I hope this helps.